Hi, welcome back to Weatherford Daze. I am Rachel. This is Jason. And if you are new here on this channel, we like to talk about books, movies, philosophies, just the ramblings from our day, our faith, our kids. And we hope that you will enjoy watching along with us, talking along with us. We encourage you to add a comment if something that we say sparks something in you. We would love to hear from you. Last week we talked about Pride and Prejudice and wit, intelligence. That was a fun conversation. And this week, Jason, you had the idea, so why don't you take it away?
The thing that gave me the idea was somehow or another, I think that my Google Chrome on my phone thinks that I like books, fiction and science fiction and stuff like that.
Crazy.
How did it figure that out? Probably because I bookmarked a bunch of stuff and it kind of knew that. So one of the articles that I saw, it said, it was like 10, usually there's like 5 or 10. It said a certain number of books. It said fiction books or media, I guess it'd be film, that explain or delve into philosophy better than a textbook could. And I was like, okay, because sometimes that's a very good way of intriguing. Yeah. And some of the things in there, I was like, okay, I could see how that would be the case. But it started getting my mind thinking about philosophical dilemmas and conundrums, questions, puzzles that that even before a lot of the modern fiction of today has been seeping into our minds. Philosophy is, of course, an ancient study. So how is it something that can reach a modern audience that would never crack open a philosophy textbook and still think about these things and still grapple over these deeper issues? There's a handful of things that I looked into, but we'll keep it down to kind of a core group because they all intertwine with something that you out there have thought about, I'm sure, at some time in your life, in your day to day, or in current events, or in what's happening in your world, local and global. You've thought about these concepts, and it's perhaps that this is going to spark something in you to ask those deeper questions, just like the media that we delve into can ask those questions that just stick with us. One subject that was very on people's minds, I'd say, was it 2018? The subject that was on everybody's mind was about I don't know, it's a movie. It didn't make any money at all. I don't know. It's Avengers Infinity War. And it involved a cosmic mad titan madman known as Thanos. And he gets these stones so that he can put them together in what's called the Infinity Gauntlet. And he can snap. And at that snap, anything that his heart's desire or his mind desires to happen will happen. And his philosophy is that there's not enough resources to go around in the entire universe. And he based it upon his own experiences. And he saw the downside of lack. And so what his thought was, I'm going to destroy, to snap away 50% of all living beings, whatever that means, in the entire universe. That's big. But it's random. It is completely random. It is chosen dispassionately. It just is. It's just a thing that happened. And it affected everybody. It was a cliffhanger movie. We had to wait, I think, another year or so before we saw the continuation of that. And the internet was aflood with people saying, well, what does this mean? What is this philosophy? And smarty pants people would, of course, just creep in and go, well, this is Malthusian and negative utilitarianism. And they were like, what does that mean? But I know that's a lot of gobbledygook. But here's the thing is, would we do that? Is it right to think in terms of resources? If there was half the amount of people or beings using up resources, what would that mean?
The thing that kind of struck me is that some people would say that modern medicine has actually negated the natural process of of that happening, because in times past it used to be that plagues and sicknesses or famines or that kind of thing would just naturally wipe out the population. But now that we've cut down on a lot of that, that our medicine and hygiene and just, general living conditions are so much better, there's so many more people
Yeah.
that are here. I mean, obviously, I don't believe this, but that is where a lot of people go that think that we are overpopulated.
Population control,
Mhm.
perhaps.
To me, I'm kind of going, well, at the same time that modern medicine has improved the life expectancy and cut down all the sicknesses and stuff, we also have
Mortality
modern
rates.
technology and stuff that is, we're able to have more food, we're able to have more housing, and we have more just in general, and there's less hunger and things that are out there. I mean, obviously there's still
There's
hunger
still
in the
hunger.
world,
Yeah.
but there's so much less starvation. And if there's going to be a natural process that culls the population, then let's let it be a natural process. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, God's pretty good at handling that. If there needs
Right.
to be,
He's got he's got the reins of destiny and the control over the universe. But the thing is that it's not meant to be in the hand of one fallible being.
right,
Thanos is fallible. He's coming from his own experiences, things that he's seen. There have been people online that actually agreed with Thanos, and there's the phrase "Thanos was right." And strangely enough, in some of the later Marvel Cinematic Universe movies and TV shows, you'll see Thanos was right, like written on a wall or something like that. I'm like, oh, that's a little real world, too real world for me.
Thanos had a God complex. When people stop believing in God, then they can pretty quickly get that God complex and think that they should be the ones to have the right to determine the destiny of everybody else.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. That's 100% true. The thing about it is that even in the comic books, he was even more godlike. But his choices that he made were, strangely enough, to woo the cosmic anthropomorphized concept of death itself. Was a female, whatever that means. So
Wow.
I don't know. To be honest, I kind of like what they did in the movies because it made me think a lot more about that. And people even said came up with ideas.
It is just
Yeah,
wired to have a God, aren't we? To have something that we worship. If we don't believe
we'll
in
invent one if we don't want
God,
to have
then
one.
we either put ourselves as God or we put a idea as God, or we have
Right.
something that we elevate to that status of worship.
Well, we are created. We are meant to worship
Hmm.
something, whether that's ourselves or a being. That's it's kind of innately built into
Or a
us,
philosophy.
or a philosophy. But the thing is, though, Thanos does not really want to be worshipped. He is basically saying, what I'm doing is a mercy.
Hmm.
I'm doing a mercy.
But I feel like he's
It's
put that by saying that he's wooing that concept or whatever.
oh,
It's
the comic book
that
version
he's
of
put
Thanos.
that on that God pedestal in his mind.
Yes, and the key about it is that he seems to be one who's not looking for accolades or worship. He's just when he said, what happens when you get your wish and you get your snap, whatever you want to have happen? He said, I will go back to my farm. And in fact, you see that at the end of the movie. He goes back to his little farm. He sits there and he watches the sun go down, and he basically goes back to a agrarian, peaceful lifestyle. He's not looking to be like he said the universe will be grateful. The sun will go down
Random
on a
thought.
grateful universe. Yeah,
Could Thanos have actually snapped himself out of existence?
if he wanted to. Yeah,
But no, I mean, it's a random selection. Could he not have been one of the 50%?
I think that
Is it?
it doesn't affect the wearer. I think that whatever you're doing, the wave that
Well,
goes
that's
outwards.
really convenient, isn't it?
Well,
Oh, it's
he
like, oh, this is going
yeah.
to affect just randomly everybody else in the
Right.
universe except for me.
So why isn't
Amazing that he's willing to take that gamble with everybody else's lives and not his own.
Yes.
Just
So
saying.
So that's the thing is one being taking it upon themselves to see other beings as numbers. Remember we said 50%? Well, that's a number. What number is that? How vast is the universe? In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we know there are other beings on other planets. And from watching Guardians of the Galaxy and Captain Marvel, you see there's other planets out there. So that means that there's a lot of life in the universe to be snapped in 50%. So you're talking numbers, right? So what happens when you see individuals as just numbers, as cogs in a machine? Then you are left with all loss of individuality, but you see the needs of the many being the outweighing the needs of the few or the one. And that, of course, is a phrase that comes from Spock from Star Trek. And there's a very utilitarian mindset in that phrase that he gives, but that is very much baked into what we're talking about today. You have another film that I watched many years ago, Soylent Green, where the main character finds out that this food called Soylent Green that's made, it's like soy based, which is funny because I'm a vegetarian, and it's supposedly made from algae and plant-based things, but it's really made from people. So in a sense, the society that's crumbling is eating itself in a way. That's all you shiver. I know. And Soylent Green as people is a secret that no one wants to get out. So here's the thing. Let's keep this secret. Don't want anybody to know about it. And society will continue to keep going, but it's perpetual feeding on itself. And what would happen if that got out? That information. Now, the main subject, the main story that sparked this whole episode is a short story by Ursula K. Le Guin, the same author who did the Wizards of Earthsea series. I think you read some of her stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I think this was written in 1973, which kind of lines up with whenever she did her later Earthsea books, which were more feminist in bent, would you say? Which seems like she's baking more political philosophy type stuff into her. This was the 70s. That was like, I mean, late 60s, early 70s. That's what a lot of authors did is they went, I'm going to put my political philosophies and bake it into my stories.
I think, honestly, the best authors kind of put their political views and worldviews into
But
their.
didn't you like her earlier just Earthsea stuff better?
I
It
mean,
was less.
I'm not saying that every author that I agree with their philosophies, but I'm saying that
You have a right to,
it
yeah.
makes a book better, in my view, when someone really, you can tell that they believe and what they believe strongly. Whether I disagree or agree with what they're saying, I think it makes them a better writer when they have a well thought out, firmly held belief system that they infuse into their books,
It's
into
how
their
they
world.
portray it. It could just
Because it just makes it more well rounded, I guess. So
Well, it's
I
not a
like, to me, it
political.
makes it a better book.
It's not a political pamphlet though. So if they write it really, sounding like a political screed or a pamphlet of sorts, something you'd hand out, at a rally, it needs to be infused into the story so much that it takes you away into the story, and then before you, just like this short story, before you know it, it's captured your mind, and you're like, I'm thinking about it long after. And that short story is called The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas. And I think there's a copy online. I can put a link in the description. So we're going to spoil it a little bit. So read that. Okay, now you're back from reading that. All right, so, okay. The gist of the story is that there is a prosperous society. There's a happy society full of, it mentions joy. And it is I don't know how. It doesn't go into the science or the magic of how this happens, but it's, correct me if I'm wrong too, because your memory is better than mine. It's based off of a young child, either 6 to 10 years old, who is kept in a almost like a cellar, and barely you can't pay attention to them. You barely feed them. They are mistreated. They cry for attention, and you don't. No one gives it. They're guarded. They are a forsaken child, to use the term. And people are brought to see, even at a young age, this child, and they see them, and they are told the secret of Omelas, where you live. The joy and the prosperity of this place is based off of the fact that we keep this child here, and they are mistreated. And many times they will cry and they'll weep, they'll be angry, and then they will either fade and they will just adapt to the society and think, well, I can't really do anything about it. Even if I did, this child is so far gone that how this would even help them, I don't know. And some can't stomach living in a city that has this as its basis, and they are the ones who walk away from Omelas, which is what the title of the short story refers to. It creates this thought in your mind: what comforts and what peace and what joy do you have that someone, either by their choice or no choice at all, has had some suffering? And what suffering do we overlook in our day-to-day life to just get by and just live the life that we live? And that's a hard question. And I think that science fiction can ask those hard questions. That's kind of the point of what I'm getting at. But we want to talk about what this short story meant to us, and what things it brought up in our mind that are very core to who we are. Would you agree with that? Some core philosophies and moralities that we share. Mm-hmm. And I know that Rachel has some things to say or in her mind, and I want to hear what those are, because I heard little hints of it over the last couple of days.
Well, I think that just kind of going a little bit more than, because you very briefly kind of skimmed over this, there were a couple of things that caught my attention while reading through the story. And one of the things was you had the concept of the age of accountability in there. Do you remember that?
Right.
It said that every person that lived in the city between the ages of, I think it said 6 to 10, somewhere in there. I don't remember what exactly.
The age of the forsaken child, as we'll call it, was 6 to 10.
No, they didn't say how old the forsaken child was.
It was kind of
They
vague.
said that the children that they said it was just a child.
Right.
And they don't give the child a gender.
Right. They said boy or girl. Right. They didn't give that.
They called it an it. So they rather than
the
saying
narrator
he or
is
she,
pulling away the humanity.
They take away the humanity by saying by calling the child an it. It's becomes kind of less than human. It actually loses, over this course of time. It started out where the child was talking, was asking, was saying, please, I haven't, I'll be good. Please help me, I'll be good. And then it goes to just kind of mumbling, and
it's a wordless cry, even.
Yeah. But they said, as far as the children, that they explain about the child to everyone as soon as they become old enough to understand. That every child is told
between 8 and 12.
8 to 12, yeah.
You're correct.
So
I was, looking at
there's this concept of this age of understanding, this age of accountability, that's very much a Christian concept too. At least the idea for age of accountability for Christians is that children underneath a certain age, before they're able to understand about God and make the choice of having it explained that Jesus died on the cross for their sins, and
The enormity of what that means. What
Right.
do they
So
grasp that?
before they're able to understand that, before they come to the age of accountability, that if they died, they would go automatically to heaven, is the concept, right? And that after they reach that age of being able to understand and having it explained to them, then they can make the choice themselves of, do they accept the sacrifice that Jesus made for them? And it actually struck me in reading this, is there some kind of having the one taking on the sins of the entire world, if they're making some kind of a negative statement about Christianity, it's not an exact parallel for
No.
anyone that understands the concept of Christ himself, the sinless one, making the choice to die, to save everyone, to sacrifice himself. But I feel like, to somebody that didn't understand Christianity, that there could be what do you call, condemnation
Yeah.
for the concept of having one person pay the penalty for the sins of the world.
There's a lot of people in a kind of a postmodern Christianity and a deconstructed Christianity that will
Hmm.
even decry the whole concept of a substitutionary atonement.
Hmm.
Jesus is just he came to bring love and lovey-doveyness, and we shall all work together in unity, and that's why they killed him. Not his claims to deity, not his claims to be God.
I,
There's a lot to
I
say about
feel
that.
like there's if you take Christianity and twist it, that this story could be a condemnation of Christianity to somebody who doesn't understand it well. That they try to actually paint this as being Christianity and condemn Christians because of it.
Why? How dare
But
you believe in this kind of philosophy that where
to me,
this happens? It's
yeah.
misery to one person
But as
who has no
someone
choice.
who absolutely understands and loves just how amazing the sacrifice Christ made for us was, and is completely ready and willing to accept that sacrifice from
They had a
a
choice.
knowing,
You
willing,
said
yeah, someone
ready.
who
They had a choice.
chose.
Yes.
Exactly. That's why the very first thing that I did was, when you were telling me the story, before I'd even read this short
Right.
story, I went, as much as we would never accept a child being just sacrificed for an entire society, there, and being tortured and tormented without a choice, never having been given a chance to really live, and not understanding what they were doing. At the same time, if you took that and you said, rather than it being a child that was necessary to be sacrificed, what if it could it be anybody that could be sacrificed? What if it was a old man who was about to die and he knowingly chose that, yes, he was going to have to endure torture, but he actually said, I choose to do this for the sake of my people. Well, we would all be fine with that.
Right.
It really is. There's a difference between a child who's never lived and someone who's lived and chooses to make the sacrifice. Those who choose to make the sacrifice for the good of the many are heroes. Those who are forced into a sacrifice, and especially children, everybody should immediately reject that as being acceptable. You never ever force someone to sacrifice for the good of many. It should always be a willing choice.
Right.
And my brain also immediately went to abortion,
Yeah.
because so many people have this concept of, it's somehow an acceptable thing that, in a world that's overpopulated, or what if it's a family that doesn't have enough money and resources to go around,
Or they're
or
probably not going to love this child anyway. They're going to forsake them.
right.
So it's better to not have
So
been born at all, which shows.
it shows a
Yeah.
lack of understanding that that child is already in existence. It's kind of, if there's a potential child, then sure, you can make that choice to not create a child. But there's you can't choose to abort something that doesn't exist. Abortion is a choice of what to do with an existing child. And if you can get someone to that point, then the entire, everything else about that argument will fall apart. And then the other thing that struck me, which we were kind of talking about earlier today, was the idea that in this short story, the ones who walk away from, and I don't know, do we want to go to this yet? Are we ready to go to it? Because it was kind of a big thought.
No, that's fine. I have some other thought that I wanted to piggyback off that, but
Okay.
let's
Okay.
go. Let's go.
All right.
Yeah.
So the concept that the ones who walk away from Omelas are the ones who are making the right choice. And it
It
very
hints
much
at
is,
that.
it's kind of like that's the only other thing that they can do. That either they have to stay in the city and live in the prosperity and the joy
The
that,
benefits that this
right, the
horror
benefits.
gives them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Or their only other choice is to leave. And as I'm sitting here processing the story, I'm thinking, well, the hope would be right. The concept behind making that choice would be that if more people make that choice, then maybe eventually everybody will make that choice and the child will no longer be tortured.
Maybe everything will
But
break down, that they'll weigh it and go, this is not worth it.
but
I can't find
ultimately,
joy knowing that someone is being made joyless.
how is that the right choice? How is that shown as actually being the only other choice? Like, to me, I'm
I
going,
don't think. Well, I don't.
that's not the
Yeah.
heroic thing.
Well,
Why
that's
did
the thing.
nobody actually, why aren't there more people saying, um, this is wrong
And
and
stop it.
trying to convince people? You either try to actually start a movement, you try to get a group of people together that you can go and stop it, or you try and stop it yourself. It's like, it, we don't know what would actually work. We don't know if anybody has actually tried, because this is very much there's a lot of the details in the story that weren't solid. She's kind of
There's a reason
writing
for
this
that, I think.
as, yeah, she's writing this as a, well, if you don't believe it this, then maybe you'll believe this. We're going to, it's very much I'm throwing out a lot of details, but the details really don't matter. We're creating an imaginary world, and she is presenting this as being an imaginary world. And a lot of the things that she's presenting aren't really important details. The important detail is the concept behind it, and the way that she wrote it very much kind of honed in on that. But I'm going, the the thing that you would do if you see an injustice and it's something that you can't live with, how is it a good thing to walk away? Because that still leaves that child in that situation. You haven't helped the child, you haven't righted the wrong, you haven't stopped the injustice from happening. The only thing that's going to stop that injustice from happening is to either rescue the child, which would help that one child, but who's to say that they're not going to then get another child and keep that injustice going?
Right. The system
The
that
system is
created this.
broken. So you need to actually change the hearts and the minds of the people that are perpetuating the system to make it where it's not, it's unthinkable to put one child into that situation where everybody's peace and prosperity is riding on a child's sacrifice.
I mentioned something real early on to you after reading this, and point was made that this story is a mirror,
Mhm.
and you're meant to look yourself in the face and go, am I complicit in any suffering in my day to day? And where is suffering taking place that I could do something about? And how much of it am I going, well, I can't do anything about it? As Christians, we know we can pray,
Mhm.
and don't let anybody tell you that that's not an action. It's not the only action, but it is an action. It's one that you can go to at the very start of things, because you often don't know exactly what to do. And prayer is an action. Don't let anybody tell you different. So, number two, it's to piggyback off that, it's a mirror to make you look at your own self. And I think your reaction, I would fight against this, is showing you that's what's in your heart. And I don't think that there's a vague enough ending to it where it doesn't seem like Le Guin is the writer is going, there are any heroes. There's not any heroes in this story. There's those that got along to get along, whatever, and just dealt with.
Their conscience is deadened.
Yeah, they're not heroes. And the ones who walked away aren't either.
Mm-hmm.
But in that case, that whole thing is perpetuated. It still keeps going because two non-heroic choices were made. It's kind of showing that the heart is a deceitful thing, and who can understand it. One thing I thought about is this trope of, you'd be surprised how often it's in books. It's called online they called it powered by a forsaken child. And I know that's a little trite to call it such an in-depth concept, something so light. But here's the thing. You mentioned Christ and I went, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Because when Jesus is on the cross, he calls out that phrase, and many people thought, oh, that's because he was forsaken by God and God turned his back. But what he was doing was referring to an earlier bit of scripture, as you often do, by name dropping the first line of the scripture. And it brought back the entire bit of scripture where he's saying, they cast lots for my clothes. You can count my bones. And it's like, oh, wow, he's saying that prophecy is taking place right now. But the word forsaken is really coming to me, because in order that we might be reconciled with God, someone had to be forsaken. But like you said, it was a choice. He said, not my will, which means not my choice, but your choice be done. So he said, no man taketh my life from me. I lay it down, which means it's a choice. That's why this story is so sad, because is it a child who was forsaken? That's why I think that an elderly person could not make the choice, because you're basically saying, hey, forsake me, by the way. I mean, I'm going to ask for help, but I want you to say, no, I won't help you. Okay, great. Are we good? That in order for this to happen, I think it has to be a natural, real mistreatment of somebody, and not mistreatment by traditional terms of interrogation or torture, but by turning away from you, being heedless of your cries, of your need to be loved, to be clean, to be all those things that make us human. In my mind, it makes me think, what horrible things are happening to children in this world, or to those who are less fortunate, that we either are not doing enough about, or we think we can't do anything. And so we just it passes by our sight. We put our blinders on to those things. These reminders about these things happening in the world should not be overlooked. They come from fiction or come from reality. Those things need to stick in our minds, and we need to think, what can we do within the 100-foot radius that God has put in around you, your life? Who can you touch? How can you not forsake? How can you reconcile somebody? Not necessarily just straight to Christ. You're the hands and feet of Christ. So reconcile them to Christ through your actions. And if God gives you an opening to speak his spirit to them, do that. But that's why it's a mirror. It's meant to expose who we are as humans and not celebrate it. It's never celebrated in this story. And I at least am thankful for that. But I think even if she did celebrate it, it would feel icky to us. And that reaction would also show us that we recognize that this is horrible. And so that's also, it shows if you're human or not, if you have humanity in you. And I think that that's what this story has baked into it, is those elements. And it's less than 8 or 9 pages or so. It takes less than 20 minutes to read. And yet you're already thinking about things in your life and your day to day where these things, similarity to these things are happening. And what life of comfort do you have where something horrible was underneath? And how do you reconcile that in your own mind? And what can you do to better represent a Christ-like way of thinking? Maybe that society that has all that joy and prosperity needs to be taken down, because if it's based off of the mistreatment of this child, what society is there in the first place? It's not worthy of good repute or report.
It does make you think. I mean, we see every day these reports of atrocities happening all over the world. And the first thing that I think the average person does is go, there's nothing I can do, right? You go, there's too many people that are hurting, that are facing horrible situations and horrible circumstances. There's no way that I can save everyone that needs saved. There's nothing that I can do. I can barely help myself. How am I supposed to help all of these other people? That's, I think, a pretty common reaction is just going, yeah, I don't have the power.
Right.
I don't have the ability. I don't have the resources, and everybody, the first thing that we want is to say, well, you look to all these people with the wealth and the power and the voice that, you go, I want Donald Trump to save all of the children. I want, you look to your president, you look to the
Or the
wealthy, the
billionaires, and
billionaires,
their
right?
money could be used for something
Right.
more useful than the latest gadget.
Because you think yourself, well, if I had the resources that they had, then I would be helping all of the hungry people. I would be fixing all of the broken families and broken homes, and I would be helping those who are abused, or that's the first place that we all go, is we think of what's the charity, what's the cause that's closest to my heart. And it can be overwhelming when you think of all of the charities. Do you help the homeless shelters, or do you help the places that are doing the clean water over in
Right.
third
The
world
the
countries?
wells in Africa. Yeah.
What is the cause that you choose? There's just unending causes that, and places that you could go to. Do you pick the foster care system? What do you choose? Because there's no way to cover them all, and yet they all need people to champion those causes. But
It's little choices
and I
that you
think
make,
that's the thing that we
small
that we
choices.
miss, is that there's enough people in this world that we can't all do it all, but we can all do a little. And if we all do something, then the world's a better place. So, no, you can't help every cause that is out there,
Right.
but pick something to be involved in and do your part.
Touch. Like I said, my kids, a lot of times people tell them, "Oh, you're smart. You could change the world." That's possible. But the thing that you deal with every day is you don't live in a giant world. You live in a world like I said before, 100-foot radius.
Mm.
Is where am I going? Who am I speaking to? Who am I touching? And how can I be the hands and feet of Christ to them? Now, can I increase my range of that 100 foot? Okay. Can I join together with like-minded individuals to make larger change happen? Yes. What can I do? There's answers to that. There's things that you can do. Just make sure that it's not also equally harmful to others, that it has only good associated with it and doesn't overly harm. And those are hard questions to ask. The thing is, what we're getting at with a lot of what we've been talking about is that there are hard questions to ask. And I love the fact that the fiction that we read can let us grapple with those hard questions, those hard philosophical quandaries and conundrums and puzzles and things like that. just questions. We can grapple, we can really wrestle with those and think, what would I do? What should I do? What does this mean? How can I see parallels in that fiction and also in my thinking and in my reality? Those are when it sticks with you for a long time. When something someone writes kind of gets under your skin and just sets up shop there in your brain, and you're just thinking about it long after. And that's the power of fiction, is that it lets you ask what if.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one reason why I like science fiction so much, is because you can ask those what if questions that can have a connection to our reality and our history and our past, but also our future. What would a future look like if we made certain choices? What would our past look like if we had made certain choices? How do we reconcile those choices in the past? And what we did as to our, and how it affects our now. So that's kind of what I got from this. And I think we should all continue to ask those questions and continue to read those books and stories that like you scratch your head and just kind of meditate on things. So many of the things that you see out there in reality are unreal, and you have to be able to go between those things and really question them and go, what am I seeing? Where does that come from? What information or data am I consuming? Because you may live in your Western civilization bubble, and someone else may live in an Eastern civilization bubble, and neither one really knows what happens in the other until you have someone come and say, "This is the truth about what we deal with here." This and you're all you see is what you see on a day to day, and what is the truth? The truth is probably somewhere in between, or it may be that we need to open ourselves up and kind of go, what is really happening? You tell me, and look into that, because the information that we're getting from the media is being sifted through multiple layers of what kind of story do we want to tell. And the stories often, that's why I said fiction, because because many times in the media what you're getting is fiction. You're getting
The
a
thing is,
fictionalized account
fiction
of
doesn't do
reality.
us any good if we can't take and apply it to our lives, right? So if you're sitting here and going, I'm reading this fiction and I'm going, I don't want to be somebody that just buries my head. I want to be somebody that finds a cause and makes a difference,
Right.
right? How do you find a cause? How do you pick a cause? That's where you're
It needs
going.
to it needs to align with your viewpoint and your worldview. It needs to be something that's core to you. I don't think that if you believe in God and you believe in the message of Christ and you hold to that, should you pick a cause that's antithetical to that, even no matter how shiny and nice and loving it sounds, it honestly, it could be at absolute loggerheads with that. So make sure that it matches up with your worldview and what you hold core and dear to you. First off,
If you're going to be
make
an
sure it's based off of
activist,
truth. Yeah,
yeah,
reality.
don't be Greta. I I guess I feel like so sad for her because from my point of view, she's spent her entire life scared of something and has become this huge activist and a worldwide name. And it seems like every cause that she picks to be really passionate about is not the important ones.
Or it's not based in
Based in
a pure
reality.
reality,
Yeah.
and it's a lot more complicated than
But to
she could ever
her,
understand.
she had somebody, when she was a very young child, describe this horror story to her that the world is being abused and that it's going to end
The sky
because
is
of what,
falling.
yeah, because of what humans are doing to the world. And she went, I'm going to be somebody that stands up
That's
and has a
admirable.
voice, and that is admirable. But it's so many people are kind of pushing back at her saying, well, you didn't hear from the right people.
Right.
You don't have a good view of you've listened to all of the people that are painting you this very grim picture, but that's not reality. But to her, she's probably thinking that the only reason that the world is still functioning right now is because she changed things. Do you think?
That's
I mean,
possible.
that's
Well,
probably
that's
what
why they
she's
call it.
thinking.
The phrase is cause celeb, and it basically means whatever is the hot thing right now for people to be really into. And the thing is, what people were really passionate about changing in the world 2 years ago, they're not thinking about at all. And did they fix it? No, not really. But something else popped up, and now I have to. Now, what do I have
Mm.
to put in my Twitter bio? What do I have to put on my Instagram that shows that I'm down with this particular mistreatment that's happening? I, you end up what do you really care about? And if you don't check a box, and if you don't do the particular
Mm.
caring that people want you to in the public eye, then you're looked at as a pariah and you're cast out. So celebrities pretty much go. What did it say? The double-minded man. He's tossed to and fro by the waves of the ocean. He's like the waves of the ocean. And you want to be singularly minded. You want to be led by the Spirit and led by God, because God is never going to lead you wrong with that. But if you're constantly going, okay, what's the latest thing right now that I need to care about? You should care about what you care about, regardless of whatever anyone's telling you to focus your mind on. And I think that's, if you want a safe bet of what to care about, that's a good leading. But I will tell you this. So if this is your first episode that you've ever watched about us, realize that we have a lot of deeply held beliefs. And that's going to come out. That's who we are. We can't hide who we are. We're going to be who we are. And if you want to take that, like I said, if you want to take that journey with us, take the journey with us. If you want to disagree with us, great. And like Rachel has said in previous episodes, maybe you've heard, she's said, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you've said uh, that we can change our minds. We are not, so much so that we can't be convinced maybe of other things.
Maybe global warming is the most important pressing issue of our time that we should all be activists about.
Maybe.
Maybe we should go concrete our hands to the pavement.
Or glue. Maybe we should glue our hands to the Starbucks countertop. We should glue our hands to the countertop.
Yeah, because that does something, right?
Yeah. Or throw tomato soup.
Yikes.
Or throw tomato soup on famous works of art in the Louvre. Maybe that's important to do. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's the thing that turns everything around. That's be the change you want to see. And if that change has to do with tomato soup being
Or
thrown on
maybe
Mona
that
Lisa,
does no more than walking out of Omelas did. Just saying, if you want to actually
you're
do
so good at putting
something,
bows on things.
do something.
Maybe I'm a little biased
Make
because we're
sure that
married,
it's
but
worthwhile.
that's a bow. You brought it full circle. I love it. Now, like I said, we grapple with sometimes the very light subjects of fiction, sometimes the heavy one. And tonight was a little bit of heavier subject, but it's all the same to us.
Light and heavy is all the same.
Yeah, gravity,
Uh,
gravitas.
that may be your belief. I'm not sure that's my belief that
Okay.
light and heavy are all the same. Okay.
Thematically, it's all this wonderful journey through fiction and faith.
Woe to those who call light darkness and darkness light.
That's not what I meant. But thank you for joining us tonight, and we will see you next time. Thank you for joining us tonight.